Hi, I'm Martin Godfrey. Let me introduce you to the WoodRat. It all began with a simple idea about making dovetails. And I think I can explain it like this. Say we have a router. This is its cutter, here. And the wood it's going to cut, there. Then I thought, supposing you have a drawing of the joint that you want over on this side, and a pointer to tell you where you are. Now, the pointer and the cutter are in a fixed relationship. So we make the drawing and the wood in the same fixed relationship, but moving left and right in front of them. And as the pointer lines up with the drawing, so the cutter is ready to cut the wood. So switch on and cut, zing, and then move the two across so the pointer lines up with the next joint, zing, and it cuts through, and you have the wood cut with its joint exactly as is dictated by the pointer and the drawing. That's the basis of the machine, the whole principle of it, and everything follows from that simple notion. The router is the right way up, not upside down. It tracks forwards and backwards under complete control. The workpiece, hardwood, softwood, plastic, ply, chipboard, MDF, placed at any angle under the cutter to be cut with any cutter with complete freedom. And all the time, you know exactly where you are. And although perfectly logical, it works in a way quite unlike any other woodworking machine. So now what have we got? Here is the cutter. Here is the pointer. But instead of using the pointer, what we do is this. We take a thin slat of wood and cut a socket in it with whatever bit you're using. In this case, a 1/2 inch straight. Move it to the left cam clamp position and draw the size and the shape of the cutter directly onto the face of the machine. So that has established that the cutter is here and the picture of the cutter is here, and that the distance between the cutter and the picture of the cutter is exactly the same as between the two fixed fences. Let's put the workpieces in, one on the left in front of the mark, and the other in front of the cutter. Now before, we had a drawing of the cutter on the left-hand side. We don't need that. All we need to do is to mark out the top of the wood here with the joint positions. And all you need is a pencil. So, as each of these positions comes in front of the mark, so the wood is lined up on the right-hand side in front of the cutter. We have the picture of the cutter, the actual wood to be cut, and the picture of the joint that we're making, moving one in front of the other. So, away we go. that's the first part. What about the second piece? Well, there's no need for any drawing now, because if we put this piece into the marker position here, that will act as a template. Each part against the mark will show us where we cut the second part. In other words, you're making your own template as you go along. The joint should fit as a joint, but at the same time, one piece should fit snugly with another without any joggle between one piece and the next. So the first frequently asked question is it complicated? And the answer to that is no. There's a lot for us to talk about, but I hope to show you that it's not complicated. Now, using a router table where you're pushing upwards with two hands and using a third hand to try and depth the bit, and then you have to push down with your chin on the whole thing to stop the whole caboodle coming off the floor. Now, that, in my book, is complicated. Mostly the WoodRat is simple. You just put the wood in and cut. As you know, when using a router table, you feed the wood into the cutter, going against the spin of the blades. Because you're feeding by hand, it's the correct way. But unfortunately, you get horrendous breakout. If you go the other way, the cutter grabs the wood and flings it across the room with the strength of two horses. With the WoodRat, we don't have these problems because the wood is held as it goes, provided that we go around clockwise, i.e. the wrong way, we get perfect, clean cutting. It's like having a power feed. So, how does the WoodRat work in practice? How does it compare with what you normally do? We identify 6 basic areas of making joints. Profiling, down the board. Functional profiles like grooves and decorative profiles. Then, around the end of the board, tenoning and bridle joints. Then, working across the board, trenching for dado cuts, housing joints and sliding dovetails, very important. And then cutting square holes downwards and drilling for mortising and for doweling. And then angled cuts for through dovetails and straight through cuts for sockets. And then stopped cuts for half-blind dovetails. Let's see how the WoodRat gets on in each of these fields. You might find that it challenges your usual way of doing things, but then maybe they need a bit of a challenge. For example, the router.